So the only problem that we have now is that we just have this view album text here, and we're going to need to create a new function which is going to return a specific field data from the albums table. Now the albums table, as we've seen, let's just go over to our database, has the title and the description, or the name and the description, and we want to use the same similar function to what's the function called, user data, and now have a function album data. So inside sorry, I've completely gone down the wrong route here. In fact, let me just go ahead and check our functions files. We've got album.func.php, and we should be missing so we've already got our album data function, which we created earlier in the series. Obviously I forgot this, but we can use this album data to grab the title and the description and display this on our view album page, just in here, as I mentioned earlier. So just above this, we want to create a new variable, and we're going to call this album data. So album data equals album data, and remember, with this function we can return, or we feed in, the album ID and then an unlimited list of parameters afterwards, which will select the relevant fields from the database. If you're unsure of this, go back and take a look at the code before we begin, the code in album.func.php. So we feed in the album ID. I am going to move this up here because we need this here to reference inside of here. So album ID, and with this album data we can then go ahead and this album data function, we can go ahead and select the fields. So we could say name. You can also go ahead and select description as well if you want. We'll add this in I guess for the sake of it. So now inside here we can actually substitute in the album data name, and this will put the name of the album inside the header tags. I guess then if you wanted, you could go ahead and create a new paragraph and actually include the album description as well. So album data description, and let's go ahead and test this now, browser. Refresh. Okay, so you can see that we've got holiday and then some holiday photos. So we've used the album data function to grab the relevant album name. Let's go ahead to our other albums, general. You can see that we have the same thing. It's displayed the title of the album, the name of the album, and the description as well. So now that we've done this, we want to include some relevant security checks, such as, is the user logged in, and does this album belong to them, which is probably the most important. We need to go ahead and up here just check if the user is logged in first of all. We've done this on nearly every other page, so logged in. So if the user is not logged in, we want to redirect them to index.php. Now we also want to check if this album belongs to the user, and also if the we need exit after there, by the way, just for security. We want to create an if statement to first of all check if the album ID is set at the top of the page. So set here. Oh, we have an error. Oh, that's because we're currently editing the page. However, we'll continue. So 61, we want to check if this album ID is actually set. So we can go ahead and check this. We want to check if not is set, $_get album ID, or empty $_get album ID. So if there's nothing been specified in the album ID, we want to relocate the user to the albums.php page and then exit. And we're going to add one more check in here in a moment, just here, but for now let's go ahead and test this. So if we refresh the page, we have our album displayed with our images. Now let's get rid of this here. We're transferred back to albums.php. If we get rid of this altogether, we transfer back to albums.php. So it just allows or doesn't allow users to view the page if they haven't specified a user ID. The last check we want to do is if the album actually belongs to the user, and we already know that we have this album check function which checks an album ID. So that's $_get album ID. Remember, we developed the album check function which essentially just checks whether a user an album belongs to a user, and we can check this against false because our function returns false if the current album specified here doesn't belong to the user. So if we were to, for example, click on holiday and then decide we want to modify this, for example 99, it will redirect us to albums because the album 99 doesn't belong to us. However, when we click on our albums, we can view them as normal because album 61 does belong to me. So the next thing we need to do is modify this, create this delete image.php file, which will actually go ahead and delete an image. And we need to do that two ways. So we first of all need to feed in this ID and actually create a function which will delete not only the image from the database, but will also delete the image file as well. And what we also need to do is check if this image belongs to a specific user, because obviously then you could use delete image.php to type in any image ID here and delete that from the database. So let's just go back a couple, and in the next part of the tutorial we'll look at deleting images.